Welcome to the Dino Watch Podcast, a show helping you to separate the facts from the fiction as we look at incident reports from the world and break down where dinosaurs have been sighted in the wild. In today's episode, we're breaking down one of the most well-documented dinosaur encounters to have happened since the Lockwood Manor incident, the events at Big Rock National Park. In case you've been living under a rock, pun not intended, earlier this year there was a near-deadly encounter with an Allosaurus over the holiday weekend at Big Rock National Park. A few members of the public were camping at the park when an Allosaurus and a Nasutoceratops laid havoc to the area, destroying an RV and causing chaos throughout the park. In the wake of the incident, the Fish and Wildlife Service were keen to use the incident as an opportunity to raise awareness about the potential risks caused by dinosaurs. But many feel that the destruction which this incident caused shows that awareness alone isn't enough. I'm joined today by Michael Belt, who was present at the park when this incident occurred. So Michael, thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into the incident itself?
Sure. Well, like you said, my name is Michael. I'm a big outdoors guy. Love going camping, visit the national parks, all that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I found myself in this situation in the first place. I have a camper to myself, just me. And I take it everywhere I go. And in this case, obviously, to Big Rock.
Yeah. So as you mentioned there, obviously this isn't the first time that you've been out in the wild, and I know in our pre-show discussion you were saying that you've been to Big Rock National Park before as well, and that it was actually a park that you visited frequently as you were growing up. So what sort of memories of the park do you have, and what did it used to be like?
Well, I can tell you that it used to be a lot less wild. I mean, Of course, you always have your typical North American flora and fauna. I mean, we've always been coming up here. My dad used to take me. Now I'm taking myself. And, it's just a good place to get kind of away from it all. And, there's good folks out there camping pretty much all the time, which kind of, is another draw for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's a nice place to be at, but obviously on certain occasions it's not so nice. And that brings us to the night where this fateful event took place. So we hear that most people were able to get away, and actually you were lucky enough to get away as well, although we know that some people were sadly caught up in the incident with the Allosaurus. So when did you first hear that something was wrong? Did you realise on the night, or did you only realise afterwards that something had happened at Big Rock?
Oh, it was definitely the night. It wasn't too late. Wasn't too late into the night that I hadn't turned in. But most folks were in their campers, in their tents, keeping to themselves, myself included. It's not that unusual to hear something rustling around or something, roaring or growling. That stuff all kind of comes with depending, where you're camping out.
Yeah.
So I did hear, some I would describe it as some grunting, some huffing. Thought it might be, elk or something. And didn't really think anything of it. But it wasn't until I heard, the unmistakable sound of an animal, I should say. I want to say not of this earth, but obviously that is no longer the case.
Yeah.
But it was definitely something I'd never heard before. And I knew right then that this had to be connected to that whole Lockwood incident. There's got to be some big scaly dino out there. And it was at that point that I decided to look out the window.
Was this your first encounter with a dinosaur?
Yes, definitely. And I hope it's my last.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. So we were obviously, as I say, we were talking a lot before the show just to kind of work out what happened. And I know you described that you were actually able to take shelter further down in the woods, but you were still able to see a little bit of what unfolded from where you were able to take shelter with a couple of others. So can you describe what you witnessed and how events on the night went down?
Well, we tried to get as far away as we could, but we didn't know what else was out there in the woods. So, we weren't trying to run until we couldn't run no more because we didn't know what else was out there waiting to eat us. So, like you said, just tried to stay safe, but also, curiosity always gets the best of you in these situations, whether it's a tornado or a dinosaur. You can't help but try to look and see what's happening. So just hid there behind some old log, hoping nothing came our way. And then that's when I could see these, I'm not a scientist. I don't know their names and all that.
Yeah.
Some sort of tricycloplots or something like that. Big cow with a bunch of horns.
Yeah.
Just kind of running around, knocking things over. And I thought that was the worst of it. But then this big guy comes, and I could tell right away that one was going to be trouble. I don't know if it was a Tyrannosaurus, or, I think they said it was some sort of cousin or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this big guy comes in, and I thought they were going to fight. I thought they were going to throw down, and maybe they did. It was kind of hard to tell in all the chaos, but that's when the big guy started to attack one of the trailers.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. And I can imagine witnessing that was certainly quite traumatizing.
Definitely. I didn't know if anyone was in there. I didn't know if they'd gotten out. I was just, to tell you the truth, we were in awe. We were definitely scared, but just kind of seeing something you've never seen before just kind of holds you in place.
And I think what you said earlier captures it perfectly, that it's something that's not of this earth, and it's something that many of us haven't seen before. So seeing them up close does have that awe effect, even if it is
definitely
masked in that danger as well. You touched on something quite interesting, because obviously you said that you weren't sure at the time what was happening and who else was involved in the incident. But obviously in subsequent reports we've learned that there was actually one family who were caught up in the centre of that incident in the trailer that you mentioned. So once things had died down and you were all able to get back closer to the campsite, how were that family holding up, and what had the incident done to them?
I kind of thought we would happen upon some pretty traumatized folks, but they were definitely, I would almost say, there's almost some jubilee going on. They seemed like they had sort of conquered. Obviously they didn't down any dinos that I could tell, but they definitely scared them off right good, and they seemed like they were almost, obviously very relieved, but they seemed like it kind of pulled them together a little bit, I guess.
That's really good to hear, actually, that it didn't necessarily have as bad an impact as we may have worried. One thing that I think is quite well documented, however, is the fact that it certainly had an impact on the campground itself.
My trailer was definitely spared, when we were finally able to kind of go back on site and retrieve everything. I like I said, I was fortunate, but there was a lot of damage here and there. Obviously, this poor family's trailer was ripped from one end to the other. It looked like a sardine can or something. But as far as everything else, that big horned, what is it? A tricycle? I don't know what it is. The big cow one.
Yeah.
Nasutoceratops?
It's close enough. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one, it was smashing around, like I said before, things really started to get heated up. And, I'd say that family's trailer definitely took the brunt of the attack. But no, I'd say anyone in the vicinity had some sort of damage, whether it was to their, their picnic table or grill or the trailer itself. They definitely did some damage up in that part.
Yeah. So how long did it then take until the authorities arrived on the scene, and what did they say when they arrived? And I guess specifically as well, who arrived? Did you see the police? Was the US Fish and Wildlife Service there quite promptly? How did that all play out?
It felt like every law enforcement agency in the U.S. descended on that in about 10 minutes. It was fast and furious. We had to speak to so many folks just to get back in the site and get to our belongings. But no, like you said, the local law enforcement was there, FBI, CIA, CSI, tobacco and firearms. I think you get the Fish and Wildlife. There was helicopters, SUVs, trucks, everything you could think of. It was a pretty pretty swift response, pretty heavy response. But you know, seeing what went down, I don't blame them for coming out with everything, because the thing that stays with me is that you just don't know what these animals are going to do next. I mean, it's not like a bear or a wolf or something like that. I mean, we don't even know. So they came out guns a blazing, and it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, I can imagine. So one thing that we've seen a lot of rumours of online is that since this incident happened, a lot of poachers have actually descended on the area, hoping to hunt down the big rock Allosaurus, as it seems to have been named online. So did you see any signs of that before you were able to head back home?
You know, I there was a couple fellas in camp kind of talking tall talk about, you know, loading up with their rifles and going down to track that thing down.
Yeah.
I'd certainly told them not to do that, or at least kind of expressed my personal aversion to doing something like that. I mean, I'm a gun owning citizen, so I certainly something I could have taken upon myself too. But you know, I just can't believe people are even thinking about doing that. Extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Like I said, you don't know what these animals are going to do, and B, it seems like that's really not our place. Obviously, you have these agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, that seem to have a plan together to take care of them. And I feel like that would kind of be on the wrong side of the law, down on one of these big fellows without without a license, I guess.
Yeah. It's a strange concept, isn't it? Getting a license to hunt prehistoric life. Not something I ever imagined we'd be having a discussion about.
No, not at all.
So I wanted to leave with a bit of a broader and more open question. And that is, in your opinion, Michael, what do you think we need to do to fix things right now? And how do we deal with the dinosaurs?
Whew. Well, that's a tough one. And like I said, I'm a bit of an outdoorsman, and I do believe that you know, nature takes care of itself. Nature is the ultimate judge, jury, and executioner, and I like to believe it'll all balance itself out. However, you know, this was not this was a man-made mess we find ourselves in. So I feel like we're you know, behooved to at least kind of, you know, usher whatever these animals are going to do next. We have a responsibility to, you know, help them get there, and certainly kind of dissuade all of these poacher types and kill 'em all types, because they are living creatures, and you know, I just believe that you know, nature will take care of it one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, that's everything for this podcast, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Michael. I really appreciate your insight.
Of course. Stay safe out there.
The incident at Big Rock shows that encounters with the dinosaurs can have huge destructive consequences, and it also highlights that an encounter with a herbivore can quickly turn into something much more deadly. This has shown how we need to take more steps to manage these animals, and that is something which is seeing effort from different groups across the globe. Next week, we'll join a cowgirl from Sierra Nevada who has been helping to round up dinosaurs and keep them out of harm's way. Make sure to join us next week as we dive into a world evolved. If you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Together, we can learn how to survive with dinosaurs in the wild.